right, welcome everyone to the meeting of the Public Awareness Personnel Policy Committee on Monday, August the 1st, 2022 at 10 a.m. We are meeting in person in the boardroom. I'm calling the meeting to order. Do we have any members of the public in attendance?
We do not, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, then I will dispense with reading the notice to the public and public comment. We will not have public comment. We have no items under personnel, no items under public awareness. We have one item under policy old business, review of ordinance 216, establishing the general provisions for conducting the business of the board. Shall we begin?
Yeah, I'll just give a real brief intro and then turn it over to Chris. But as you know, it's been it's back and forth a couple times with 216, and we're hopeful that this time we can get approval through the committee, and then we can take it forward to the board and make the final recommended changes to ordinance 216. So Chris is going to walk you through those changes that are a kind of result of the previous meetings, and then we'll take whatever direction the committee may have. Take it away, Chris.
Thank you, General Manager Prim. So I have ordinance 216 up on the screen. Hopefully it's showing up on your monitors in front of you. The first item that we had all recommended to be modified was section 1.5, the agenda. There's statement about any director may request any item to be placed on the agenda, and the recommendations that were brought forward from previous sessions were that it be listed as a future agenda, and then the request to have an item needs support from at least one other director. So that was the recommendation, and just want to confirm that that's what the committee recommends, that we put it in that fashion on section 1.5.
I'm good with that.
I'm good with that. I think that fosters a spirit of collaboration, and it also puts in place a process rather than us just sort of saying, I'd like to see this. It it sort of puts in place a process to move items onto the agenda. So I'm okay with that. So I think we're good with that.
Good, thank you so much. Moving on down to section 1.8, standing advisory committees. In section A right there, there's language that says that the members would be appointed by the president, and in conversations we had thought that it would be better to have that be recommended by the president. And as part of the language in section, at the end of this section, is that committee appointments made by the president require approval by a majority of the board. So essentially the president gets to recommend who's on which committees, but then in turn the board of directors needs to vote on it and approve it, which I think is the practice, but this just kind of codifies it, if I have that correct.
Yeah, so with those changes, the president would not have unilateral authority on the makeup of committees. It would require the approval of the majority of the board.
I think that's fair. And I think what I would like to see is, whether if this becomes part of the consent calendar at the first board meeting, once the new board is seated, then there is opportunity to pull items from the consent. I think that's part of our process. And that would, that would mean that we could potentially vote on each appointment separately. And I think that that's fair.
And like we said, I think that's been the practice, but now it just kind of makes it policy and move forward with that. I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Additionally, within this portion right here, I think we decided that we would keep it, that the president does get to appoint instead of recommend the committee chair, under the provisions that nobody gets to chair more than one committee without unanimous approval by the board. So this would remain. That would be power that the president retains, is the ability to appoint the chair people. If that sounds good.
I'm okay with that.
You too?
For the ad hoc advisories, it maybe should have the same requirement that the majority of the board approve any ad hoc appointments. I think that would be, I think the group realized that that would probably be appropriate. For section B right here.
I think that's fair.
And then I think we had comments on committee members serving at the pleasure of the board president, and it's unclear exactly what that implies. Does that mean that the president can remove someone? So I think we needed some clarification on this particular passage.
Yeah, it seems a bit inconsistent. If the majority of the board has to approve the appointments, it would seem odd that the president could then take somebody off the board unilaterally. So I think the intent, I think, from staff's perspective, is the makeup of the the makeup of the committee should be the whole board's decision, not solely the president. So if we do make the previous changes where the board, by majority vote, approves the president's recommendations, I think we need to get rid of this first sentence in section C. Because you could see in the future, if a board member, or let's say the board president, put forth a slate of candidates, the board as a whole didn't like it, and end up voting in a different group of committee members, the president, with this language, could then turn around and strip those people right from the committees.
Agreed.
So we're just trying to prevent that from occurring in the future, where if there tends to be a bit of a struggle in the makeup of the committees, I don't think C should be able to override A and B.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, so we'll just strike that particular sentence.
Or we could just take out president.
President, right?
All committee members shall serve as the pleasure of the board.
Yeah.
Okay, got
Great.
it. And then I think another recommendation was, it states here, the general manager shall be an ex officio non-voting member, and we thought it maybe should include or his designee in case the assistant general manager or one of the managers is a designee, if that would be okay.
I think that's fair. I think that frees up the general manager's time. And, we may have general managers with differing levels of expertise and interest, and so I think that's fair.
Sounds good. So here comes the good part of the session right here. It's in section B. And I'm going to read this to you. We had found a rotation that I think is a workable solution. We've had this issue where sometimes a board member wouldn't get to have an opportunity to be board president during their first term. So the new language would be directors will rotate into the office of the president in the following order: Division 5, Division 1, Division 4, Division 3, and Division 2. Directors will rotate in the office of Vice President in the following order: Division 1, Division 4, Division 3, Division 2, and Division 5. So this codifies the sequence and basically would strike the sentence where people wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to serve during their first term. It's just a sequence.
So this is a different order than we currently have,
No,
right?
well, I think it's just codifies it.
Yeah, I
the
think it's
existing
taking,
sequence.
it's taking the practice that we currently have and just putting numbers, division numbers to the people that in the order they were.
Yeah, so currently, President Elatharp is Division 3. He's the current president. The existing vice is Division 2, Jim Hernandez. And then that would be followed again by the beginning of the sequence with Division 5 and then Division 1.
Okay. And then the vice president,
Is just one behind.
one behind.
So theoretically, next calendar year, Director Hernandez would be president, and yourself, Director Boyd Hodgson, would be vice president.
Yeah. Okay.
So Chris, I think one thing we need to add is where it starts. So it gives the order, right? It says this will be the rotational order, but it doesn't say who's in any given year.
Yeah, but there's already an existing sequence going,
Yeah,
so
so
I don't know that you have to tie it to it, because the sequence
So we'll
already
just
is.
keep on.
Yeah.
We'll just keep on going the way that
I'm
it's.
fine with that if the committee is
That's
okay
on
with
the calendar
that.
year, is that when they change usually?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think
well,
that-
we reorganize in the first meeting in December typically, but I think they take effect.
Is that in the policy somewhere that we do reorganize?
Yeah.
or-
I think it
it's
is. And then
previously in
we
there.
usually don't have the second meeting in December, right? We take that off? Yeah.
Oftentimes we
Yeah.
take it off.
So
yeah.
then it. So just, yeah, we can just keep on keeping on the order that we're doing it. And then we are codifying, which was a little nebulous, that the vice president assumes the presidency the next year. And with this rotation, it's consistent with what we've been doing with the practice. And if that prohibits someone from being president in their first term, then that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Me too. How long have we had divisions, Division 1 through 5? That's my only concern is, say, 2-3 years from down the road, now we had a 6th division, or things changed, now we've got to change policy, right?
Yeah, that's very unlikely that would happen, but
That's what I was wondering.
if there was a change, then we would have to revisit the ordinance
Okay,
at
but
that point in time.
it's pretty unlikely, I mean, this has been this way for a little while.
Yeah, I think ever
The
since
unforeseeable future looks like those 5 divisions. I know we do some redistricting of the divisions, but
And we're rebalancing the populations too, I think, across the districts as a result of the redistricting.
We are, right, but that won't change the number of divisions that are within
okay,
the
so that's
district.
highly unlikely, okay.
Highly unlikely.
All right, and if it does, okay. No, I'm good with that as well.
there was additional thought on what we would do if somebody wanted to skip being board president. I'm not sure anybody necessarily would, but in that case, what do we do?
And you addressed that in here, though.
If a director chooses to forego his or her opportunity to be president, and I appreciate that you said his, her, the rotation for president and vice president will skip over their divisional sequence. So it'll just keep going, just skip.
Yep.
Got
I
it?
mean, that makes sense to me.
I do.
Me as well.
Yeah, do you have the,
Skip over that.
are you asking him if he has the one that shows the highlights? Yeah.
I've got it.
Okay.
Yep, that's coming up. So, and then section C, which is highlighted, this was just to be retracted, this topic on Encina and the San Diego County Water Authority boards. I think there had been comments from the board as a whole that, like, the Water Authority wants to get somebody up to speed and have them retain that position and not just continuously rotate it. So we would just strike this specific sentence.
That'll just follow how we appoint currently with no special Encina caveat there.
North San Diego County Water Authority.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I struggle with this because it's a tremendous opportunity for someone to learn about our water regionally, and but I guess just if we leave this out, it doesn't mean that new people can't be appointed. It's just a little bit more. It requires more lobbying, and it's a little bit more difficult. It requires initiative from that person that wants to be on the boards to make that case. Whereas here, this provides a little bit of protection and a little bit of permission for a new person to come in. And I appreciate that it's really complicated. And it requires a lot of getting up to speed, but it's also a tremendous opportunity. And, you know, I don't think we can use the argument that it's so complicated, therefore we need the same people on the board all the time, and therefore they should continue to be on it. I like that this gives permission. I would like to see this in and have the board vote on taking it in or out. It just gives a little bit more permission for someone to say, hey, you know, I want to do this, and it says that that anyone who has the desire can try. And there's still the fail-safe of, you know, if the board disagrees and says, no, we really need this person on the board because they've got more experience, they can vote it down. There's still that mechanism. But this gives a little bit of permission and a little bit of something that someone can point to and say, hey, I do have this desire, and I have a lot of ideas, and I want to bring them to those committees. So, President, can you appoint me to this? And maybe the president will, and then we can vote on it. Yeah.
So, Director, so just so I understand, so what we'll do from a committee recommendation is right now, leave this in and have the full board consider whether removing this is appropriate. Is that where you want to leave it?
I think so. I mean, that's the point of discussion that we're having. I think there, you know, some people do want to remove it and some people don't, but I feel like this gives a layer of permission for someone that might want to do this, that they can point to and say, I have that desire, so I would like to be considered for that. What do you think?
I don't know, I mean, I think the labor permission is already in there when they're saying, because now the president is not appointing, now the board is gonna talk about it anyways. This doesn't have any teeth to it anyways, because all it says is, I mean, it's pretty, it says, he who desires shall have the opportunity to hold. We always have the opportunity to hold anyways, whether that's in there or not. And it doesn't have any teeth, it's not shall be appointed during that one term, it just says shall have the opportunity. So a board member can say, yeah, you can have the opportunity, but as a board, we're gonna vote on it, and even though we all have the opportunity, you know, and, you know, I just, it doesn't have any teeth anyways, just because it's so, I just think it's wordy, and we can remove it, and it doesn't change that each board member shall have the opportunity to serve on the Encino, you know, on Encino if they want to, or Encino County Water Authority, because it says it previously here anyways, where we, appointments, you know, each board member can have the opportunity, and we're gonna be doing lobbying anyways. The president's gonna reach out and say, where do you wanna serve? And we talk about it in a board meeting, and, well, even though you're in your second term, you really wanna serve on San Diego County Water Authority? What do you think, board members? So, I mean, I think it's already in there, and when we look at, where we just read it, in 1.8, standing committees, they're all gonna be recommended by the president. So that's right, I think it's just said, it's twice, and there's nothing in there. Again, it says shall have the opportunity, not shall serve.
Yeah, so I've had conversations with the attorneys about what shall have an opportunity means and how it could be interpreted, because some could interpret it to say, hey, this says I shall have the opportunity, and it shouldn't be a choice, it should be my decision whether I get to do it. Or it could be, no, you get, your hat can be thrown in the ring and we'll discuss it, so.
Yeah.
I think the way as written, it sets up a conflict, a potential conflict between saying the board gets to decide who's on these representative groups, and this being interpreted as, oh no, I get to decide as an individual that I want to be on that group. So I'm gonna ask Chris though, is there a section that specifically talks about, other than section C here, is there something that talks about the appointment to Encina and CWA?
I don't think so.
Because I think the previous section is about standing committees, and those are our internal committees, so our four committees, our P3 being one of those. So
I see what you're saying.
we may need to broaden section A to say that the appointments are also for the external committees. I don't know if it's section A, but we need to make sure there's a section in here that says that the board gets to decide who's on those committees, and then figure out this underlying issue of the aspect as an individual board member, are they guaranteed an option or an opportunity during their first 4 years?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, our legal counsel's interpretation doesn't mean that this language means you're just throwing your hat in the ring. That's what I thought it meant. But you're saying it's almost like an entitlement.
Yeah, they're saying it could be interpreted that way. That's not their
Okay.
opinion, but they're saying an individual board member could read that and say, hey, this says I shall get the opportunity. It doesn't say an opportunity for consideration. It says I get an opportunity to hold a position. And if you don't vote me in, then you've stripped me of that opportunity. So I
See, that's where I'm
understand.
confused, because to me, this means opportunity to be considered,
I think it means opportunity to be considered too. I think we agree on that.
to be
Yeah.
considered,
Yeah.
not to actually be appointed. So
Right,
that's-
and that's,
But
yeah,
like
that's
you
why I
said-
made the point that, eventually, I mean, we vote on it anyway, so it can be voted up or down.
And I'm saying, well, it already says it earlier that we have the opportunity to be considered. So all it does is say it twice, and it kind of specifies those two external committees. So I either think we need to either strike it or give it some teeth, because right now it doesn't do anything to me at least.
Right.
You
One of
either
the
need to say, okay,
One of the things we can consider is replicate the language in C, similar to standing committees, and say that the president will recommend who is basically in those seats for Water Authority and SENA, and which will be basically adopted by the board through majority vote. So it'd be the same language as standing committees, but specifically calling out. So this way we could leave the structure of C and leave it in that part, and it's basically the same exact mechanism.
I'm okay with that.
yeah, me too. I like the consistency. I mean, we're not, setting apart these two committees as separate, just consistency on how we are
Okay.
recommended and how we serve regardless of the committee.
And I think that takes the confusion out of it, treating it just like the standing committee. And including the language means that it will be treated like a standing committee, as opposed to inferring that it would be treated as a standing committee.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
So Chris is
Is that clear as mud?
Well, are there other assignments that aren't addressed? Who's our Aqua representative? Who's our, so those need to be addressed as well. And I can't remember if they're included and clarified in here. We talked specifically about our standing committees, which is just our 4 internal. We talked specifically about our ad hoc, and now we're talking about these external groups.
I think the only time that Aqua shows up is on the memberships.
Yeah, so you'll remember in December, the president comes forward with a whole slate of recommendations, and it's not just the 4 committees or the ad hoc, it's not just the Water Authority and CWA, there's maybe a half a dozen, I don't remember the
CPIA,
number of
CASA.
others.
GPAC, all of them, yeah.
Yeah, so you have all of these, and there may be some lack of clarity. My recommendation is that we should, the president, when they come in, they should make a recommendation on all of these things. And then the board gets to approve those recommendations, and if they don't approve it, there's conversations, and the president can maybe put forth a new slate of candidates, and then ultimately we'll make a decision. But I don't want to leave this certain group of outside agency representatives unclear as to how those get done, whereas some of them are very clear.
So staff will maybe have to change the language in C to say all committees or all other assignments, including but not, we'll have to add language.
Yeah.
And maybe bring it back to the board for consideration, which will be inclusive of not just what's been specifically called out, but all the other assignments that can be done by the board president as far as recommendations. So we'll have to change the language a little bit.
And I think that that's the practice that we have been doing. I'm looking at the 2020 list. And it was, it was put forward and voted on. So I think this is what we've done.
Yeah, so I think we're just trying to codify the practice. If the committee likes the practice, I guess I'd ask that you trust that staff will bring this item forward to the board with that in mind, that we're going to try to have that whole list I think you're looking at, Boyd Hodgson. The president's going to make a recommendation, and the board's going to vote on all of those, not just the ones that are detailed in the current ordinance. So I don't think the committee needs to see it again unless you want to see
I don't think so.
216 again.
I don't
As long as
think
you're
so.
okay with that concept, that the board president will make a recommendation, and the board as a whole will vote on on all the recommendations.
Without any specific directive towards any other committees, whether external or internal.
Basically, yeah, they'll put forth their slate of candidates for all of these, and then the board will vote. And whether the board votes individually or en masse, it doesn't,
Because then at that time, the board member can like you said, lobby for it. Wait, I've been on Encina for 2 years, we're in the middle of this stuff, I think I would be a good representative because, we've already made some, I've already
Yeah.
been educated on certain things.
Yeah.
Like Jim, I think Jim and Mike are on it now or something like that, and they make a good point, it's like, to go another year would be fine.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
change the alternative.
The practice is that the incoming president usually reaches out to the other board members to find out where their interests lie. And that's prior to the meeting, and then they use that information to put forth their slate of recommendations. And that's worked pretty well, but that's not codified that the president shall reach out beforehand. It's just a practice. And I'm not suggesting that it be codified. I think that's just best left as a practice.
Agreed?
So we'll broaden the language here to include all of these appointments. I don't know if we'll include those, just a list, or just say all of the outside agency representatives will also be put forth as slated candidates. And we won't bring it back to the committee, but we'll bring it to the board. Just don't want you to be surprised. We can send the language out to the two of you before the board meeting, so you're aware of what changes were made. But next time you see it will probably be at the board level, unless you want us to come back here.
I don't think we need to see it again.
Okay.
Nope, I'm
Okay.
for that as well.
Okay.
I think that concludes all the recommended edits.
That was easy.
Maybe Ann has something.
I have some highlights
Oh,
on.
yeah, okay, so there was, let me highlight it right here. North County Water Group. And I don't know that I think staff have lost track of what exactly that is at this point.
We have an idea of what we think it is, but James, did you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so the North County Recycled Water Coalition, when we were first formed, there was an interest of whether board members, whether it be a working group of staff or it'd be more of a policy group. It ended up being a working group, but at the time, when it was still being formed, that's the group with the 8, 9 other agencies that we go out for grant funding to figure out how to basically distribute recycled water in our region and do water reuse for our North County region. It ended up becoming a working group of mainly staff, not a policy group. But at the time it was put on here, and we didn't have the name North County Recycled Water Coalition yet. It was put on here because as a placeholder in case it became more of a policy group. So we're thinking at this point, probably removing that would be a recommendation since it is more of a working group with staff that actually engages in that.
So your recommendation is to remove it?
Or clarify it, so that's one possibility. There is another group called the North County Work Group, which is North County water agencies that meet for I'll say an informal breakfast once a month. So I'm not sure if this was referring to the work group or the one that James talked about. So we need to clarify that so we know what it is, because right now this name doesn't exist anywhere. So I hate to put something on a list where there's no group, so. Right now, we don't have anybody that participates in that North County Work Group, the one I'm referring to, but we'll do a little research and we'll clarify that when we bring it back.
And these are all spelled out because they either require memberships, because we support them financially in one way or the other, and we
Yes.
attend certain events they put
Yeah.
on throughout the year.
Yeah, almost all of them require some kind of a dues. We're some kind of a member.
I mean,
But like the North County Work Group that I'm talking about, I don't think there's any dues. You have to pay to go to there's like a breakfast meeting once a month, so you have to pay to go to the breakfast. But I don't think it's a dues. You're not aware of any annual payment or anything, are you? So we need to figure out what that group is. And Chris, was there another one? that was highlighted?
Yeah, I think we have highlighted the chamber event that's eligible for the per diem reimbursement is the state of the city, so wasn't clear if we wanted to modify that.
I think we wanted to maybe add elected officials.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
a
the most
discussion.
recent
since,
event.
the elected official seems to be attended, and normally the board votes on that being a per diem item, whether we just want to codify it here, this way it doesn't need to go to the board every single time. And wanted committee recommendation on that.
I'm okay adding it.
I was outvoted last time, so.
Yeah.
We have mixed reviews from the committee. We can bring it to the board. I've lobbied a couple of times that I would like to see us join the U.S. Water Alliance. It's an organization that fits with our new strategic direction. They promote One Water. They also have, Imagine a Day Without Water, which we celebrate and we do something for it. That's what they do. So I would really like to lobby joining U.S. Water Alliance, and if that requires a board vote, I mean, we've had emails back and forth about the benefits of joining. They promote water equity, clean water, and part of our mission statement is now One Water. So I would like to see that on this list. It's not, they have educational opportunities, and I would like to see us become a member of that as well.
Yeah, so when we bring this back to the board, we could make a recommendation. We could say, hey, that at the policy committee, there was discussions about adding this group, and then look to the board for direction. I wouldn't feel comfortable adding it, but just say up for discussion.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
we can do that. And we'll clarify on the chamber, it's gonna be those two events, then it'll be State of the City and the meet the elected officials, but we'll still restrict it, because the chamber has tons of events, right? And we don't wanna open it up so that anything that says chamber on it, you can go to, but it's gonna be those two events.
That sounds good.
And I'm gonna take a leap here. When we talk about per diem reimbursement, it's also gonna include expenses. So typically, if we're gonna pay the per diem to go to an event, if there's parking or if there's a registration charge or something like that, those are also included, the expenses associated with those types of things.
I think that's consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, but the reason I pointed out is because the highlighted section says eligible for per diem reimbursements. So we just need to make sure that it's clear that per diem and also, it will say per diem and expenses.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
okay. I think that's consistent.
Yeah, it wasn't, I don't think it was intentional to restrict what was reimbursable, it was just left out, so.
I think Director Pennick has a different opinion.
Okay, consistency's good. I mean, if it's, that's fine.
I think that concludes it then.
All right, so we'll cobble this Frankenstein together, and we'll bring it back for the board, and we'll try to highlight the issues where there's still a little bit of board input required. We'll kind of summarize and say, here's the recommendations from the committee, and here's some ideas or some areas where the committee thinks the board needs to provide input, if that's acceptable to them.
I think so, and I don't think there are that many things that are up for discussion.
Nope, it's pretty narrow.
Anything else?
Good job, Chris.
All right, thank you, everyone. I think, Ann, yes.
Yeah, we do have.
Oh,
yeah.
yes, thank you. The next meeting will be September 12th. But it says possible conflict.
Yeah, so typically the meeting would be the first Monday, so it'd be September 5th, but that's Labor Day, so we moved it back to the 12th, but one of our committee members has a conflict on the 12th. So we
Okay.
wanted to find out what the committee wants to do for our next meeting date.
Okay. Well, let's just look at the calendar. Yes, I would advise not meeting on Labor Day. And,
So if we stayed with Mondays, it would be the 19th, so if you want to check your calendars for the 19th, otherwise we can pick a non-Monday.
does a non-Monday work, or do you want to just keep it on the 19th?
19th, there's a Napa Water Academy, is that?
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of things going on in August, so
Okay.
I don't have my sheet on me.
Could we do it Tuesday, the 13th?
It's still open.
Okay. We have the staff luncheon on the 15th, and we don't have a board meeting the night of, or the day of the Wednesday, the 14th. We do not have a board meeting that day? does the
I don't
Wednesday, the
have it in here
14th
when I'm
work?
back, but I think so, the 14th?
I think you're back on the 13th.
Do we want to do it at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 14th? Does that work for staff?
Works for me.
I'm good with that.
So 9:14 at 10 o'clock?
Okay, that works. So we've decided that the next P3 committee meeting will be September 14th, which is a Wednesday at 10 a.m. Is that, are we all agreed then? Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the presentations. Thank you for your patience walking through this ordinance. And I think we have, we just have a couple of tweaks to discuss at the board meeting.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, everyone. We're
All right,
adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.